I'm Scott Al Miller. It's the 29th of October, 2023. This is my vlog of daily life living in Leon, Nicaragua. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about just what we've had going on. We've got Halloween coming up pretty soon. We've had a very busy week with just doing stuff around with the show and getting a lot of videos caught up. As you know, I'm doing a lot all in just a very short period, but we're getting the show very much on track, and we're going to be talking about whether or not you need or how much Spanish you need or how much English is going to be available when you're out on the beaches here in Nicaragua. We're going to be talking about that when we get back after the bump. It's another day of Q&A around here on the vlog. I have been running in between phone calls and meetings and all kinds of stuff, and it's been very good with work. I've just been very busy. That does not make it a negative. I'm definitely in a business where it's good to be busy, and it's been a good week. So a lot of good stuff happening, just in general, nothing newsworthy, just work has been good but exhausting along with my vlog work. But we're going to get right into the question today. That's one of the reasons we're just, because of the storm, for those who don't know, tropical depression has been going on for several days, and so getting recordings in between the rainstorms has been very critical because there's large periods of time where it's too dark or it's too rainy and I can't be outside. So once in a while I'm doing stuff in the office, and that's why we're not out walking around or anything, because any attempt to do so we get caught in a storm, and that's not very good. Plus I had to go to Managua a little bit. All right, Allison Bradley asks, good day. I'm coming to Nicaragua from BC, Canada for a few months mid-January. It's amazing that she's going to fit a few months into mid-January. January does seem like a really long period of time, but I've never thought of it as being a few months long. Sorry, I'm just being sarcastic. This video really speaks to me. My question is, do all these areas speak basic English? I'm learning Spanish, but I'm not very good yet. So first of all, welcome to the club of everyone who comes to Nicaragua is not very good at Spanish yet. Like, you're not unique in that. Don't feel like you're the one person who hasn't learned Spanish. That is absolutely not the case. So first of all, the majority of tourists, or at least the leading source of tourists coming to Nicaragua, is Canada. And Spanish is not popular in Canada. I mean, it's not unpopular. It's probably, I would assume, next after French as the language you would learn. That's probably not true. That might be Japanese or Mandarin. But Spanish is within the realm of languages you can be exposed to in Canada. But it's not like the United States, where Spanish is solidly the second language for everything, with a giant portion of the population speaking it. Canada isn't like that. And with Canada sending by far the most people to Nicaragua as tourists, and the United States, who, while Spanish is a second language, is really bad at teaching people second languages, sends a lot of people to Nicaragua. And people who are coming from Europe, who make up the third largest group, are often coming from the Germanic countries where Spanish isn't that popular. So you're getting a lot of people from the Netherlands, Germany, Switzerland, Austria, the UK. A lot of them have a few words of Spanish, but not a ton, although most are bilingual and they've got French or Italian or something as a secondary, tertiary language. So picking up Spanish for them is a little bit easier than most of us in North America. But all that being said, you are not out of the ordinary. The average person traveling to Nicaragua as a tourist is going to have extremely little to no Spanish. So don't think that you're in a special situation. Don't think that it's a reason to panic or anything like that. Can you get by without having Spanish? Absolutely. Like, travel the world, you can go almost anywhere, and finding a way to work without the local language generally is fine. You can go, the United States is actually one of the hardest ones, right? Because so few people have exposure to another language, and there's such an unbelievable expectation that everyone will speak English, that it's one of the worst places to try to get by in a language other than the native language, English. But here in Nicaragua, you're going to have a very little ability to find people who speak English. Of secondary languages, English is very high here. So if someone speaks more than one language, the chances that that second language is going to be English is quite high. But the chances that someone does speak a second language is quite low. There are very few English speakers here. When it comes to going out on the beaches, most of the beaches are staffed by locals. It is not a, if we're talking hotels and restaurants, that kind of thing, it is very rare that you're going to have someone who, for example, grows up in Managua and says, I'm going to relocate to the beach for work. It happens, but it is rare. And when it does happen, it's almost always a manager, someone who has a degree in hospitality and is going out to manage a hotel or property. It is not someone who's like, I'm going to go be a waiter or a bartender or anything like that. Almost exclusively, those people are going to be hired from the local community because the pay scales, just like in most places, are not super high relative to the rest of the market for those jobs. So they're not highly sought after for if you're a Managua or you're from Chinandega. You're not generally aspiring to go work on the beach in customer service. If you are looking for a customer service job that's going to pay more, you're going to look at either being like a waiter or similar jobs in the city just because they have a lot more traffic, or you're going to look at learning English and going to work for a call center or similar where the pay scales are much higher. And then your money goes farther, right? It's a much better lifestyle. So most of the people who are on the beach are not going to speak English very well. Those who do are going to gravitate into other positions very quickly. Or you will get someone who's just really passionate about being on the beach, and that's going to be very rare. For example, if you speak really good English and you live on the beach, it is unlikely that you're going to want to continue to live on the beach, even if you live for free at home or whatever, and make $200, $220 per month being able to speak English, but having to be paid waiter rates on the beach when you could, if you speak English, get $600, minimum $700, normally, and easily $800 plus by moving into Managua or even Leon and getting a job in a call center. And that's just numbers you might start at. You could start as high as $800, $850 a month. That's 4 times what a waiter on the beach would make. So that's hard to turn down because you can easily pay for, moving to the city, getting an apartment, eating at restaurants, right? With the difference in income between living at home for free and making $220 on the beach and getting that pay in the city, because you can get an entire house for under $100 if you're a single person, and if there's 2 of you have a roommate, you could easily get a place for $150 or less, and so that's a very small portion of that extra money. So that's why you're not going to find a lot of English speakers on the beach. Not that there's zero, but they're rare. So a lot of places you'll go, you'll have people who have a few words. They'll do their best to learn what they can. You're going to be getting by in Spanish most of the time. And that's fine. Learn what Spanish you can, absolutely. The more you take time to learn a few words, some phrases, get used to hearing it, that really does help a lot. Just the more you have, the more enjoyable your time is going to be. Make sure you know all the words that are going to be on a menu. You want to know how to say, beef or chicken or shrimp or fried, or breaded, those kinds of things. You're going to see that all the time. But there isn't a huge variety of food here. I mean, obviously, you're going to go to different restaurants and get different things, but overall, there tends to be a lot of repetition in the menus. So once you've learned what normal foods are, that's going to get you by about 90% of the menus and things like that. The thing that'll be difficult is conversations, and chances are you're just not going to have them until you find most likely other guests who speak English, not people who work on the beaches. The one place where this is going to be an exception, in San Juan del Sur, you're going to find quite a bit of English speaking on the beach. And from time to time, you're going to find like hostels that have volunteer backpackers who are, living for a few weeks there. They could easily be native English speakers. That happens quite often. Or people who are coming from like Switzerland or the Netherlands, where English is very, very common. So it'll happen. Don't be like completely surprised when you find someone who speaks English, but don't be surprised if you go to a hotel and there's not a single person who does. But realistically, it's not a problem. It's really easy. Most of the words you have to deal with when dealing with going into a hotel, going to a restaurant, living on the beach, even getting surfing lessons, doing some activities. Mostly that's very, very simple Spanish, and you can do almost all of it with gestures, and if it's money, they can write it down or show you a calculator with the number, or whatever. Make sure you understand dollars and Cordobas. I've got videos on that. If you need more, everyone get down in the comments, ask your questions. What is it you need to know? Just let me know. I'll make videos on it like this one. But by and large, it really isn't hard. When I first moved here, and I've traveled all over the world, I've lived in places where I don't speak the language. I talk about this a lot. I lived in Greece, where you can't even read the language, or Ukraine, where I can't even begin to read it, like it's so foreign, and did that, create challenges? Absolutely, it created challenges. And do normal people speak English? No, especially in Greece, very few did. In Ukraine, quite a few did. But being able to go places and, you look at the menus and you use Google Translate for a few things, and you learn a few words, and you point and you ask and you smile, and it really isn't that hard. It can be intimidating and daunting. The airport is really like the hardest spot where you're dealing with customs or whatever, and they're not there for customer service. But most people are either customer service or someone who's being friendly and wants to interact with you, and they're going to put forth some effort. So those things make it, as a traveler going to another country, very, very comfortable. Now, you're coming in mid-January, so you have 2 months yet. This is a great time to buckle down with things like Duolingo, and you can learn a lot of Spanish during that time. Now, trust me, unless you're a savant, you are not going to get so much Spanish off of Duolingo or anything in 2 months where you're going to come down and be conversational. That is unrealistic, especially for someone like me. I've been doing Duolingo for years and years and years. I'm only barely conversational now. Maybe a little bit more than barely, but I'm not a fluent speaker by any stretch, and I've been taking Spanish in school since 1990. So I have a lot of time behind me. I'm definitely not as fluent as a speaker as people who have had 1/5 the amount of time that I've had. But doing things like Duolingo every day, you'll build up a vocabulary, you'll get into the habit of it. And when you get here, it's going to really quickly start being, oh, I've seen that. You see it in use, and you'll start piecing that stuff together mentally really quickly. So the more you can do, and with 2 months, if you just spend a bunch of time every day, you will certainly feel it. And when you get here, you'll have all this confidence, which of course, the moment you get off the plane and get hit with real world Spanish is going to be blown away. So you'll go from, I have all this confidence, and then you get off the plane and go, I don't know what anyone is saying. This is nuts. Partially it's because of a really strong accent, partially because they use, this is a vosotros-based Spanish, so there's vos is used all the time. So for example, if you're used to saying tú, for you, the casual form of tú, here they use vos. A lot of people, if they know you're not a native Spanish speaker, are going to switch to tú. So you'll hear people switch. So if you want to say you want, right, that would be tú quieres. But if you're going to be saying it here in Nicaragua, in traditional Nicaraguan Spanish, it's vos quieres, which is really close, but both the you, tú, or vos, and the verb quieres are slightly different. Well, the one's very different, the other is slightly different. And that, hearing that vos form of verbs really throws people off, and that's where it's hardest, because people will say things like quieres, and you'll be like, did they say quieres, or did I miss what they were saying? And it takes a while to realize, oh, it's because people are normally speaking in the vos form, and they only switch to tú under very specific circumstances, like when they realize that you're not a native speaker and they have that comfort to switch themselves, or when they're talking to someone in very specific circumstances and you're overhearing it. But normally you're going to be hearing the vos form, and since Duolingo doesn't teach that, since almost no resource does, that can be much, much harder. So that's where, if you were interested in getting a in-person or an online, but a human Guatemalan, almost said that Duolingo is Guatemalan Spanish, right? So that's normally what you're getting. If you want to get an in-person Nicaraguan speaker to help with that, that can help, because they can teach the vos form and they can teach what it sounds like, because you're going to see it not just is spoken, but it's going to be written as well. And that's something that is surprising. I think people coming here who do speak Spanish to some degree are like, well, people are going to say vos, but it's going to be written too, of course, but it is not. What is written here actually mimics the spoken language much more than in other Spanish-speaking cultures. And partially that is because this is an old colonial Spanish-speaking region, and so their traditions of how Spanish and the language, both written and spoken, are treated come from a different time period and evolved separately from, say, Spain or Mexico. They didn't really have those connections when it evolved. And so in many cases, the written word has become modified because there wasn't a strong, continuous written tradition that connected. Of course, there was, but there wasn't as strong as you had in a Mexico, a Spain, even a Guatemala or Argentina. And so some words have come down over time, spelled differently than they are written in, say, Spain, and because they're maybe based on the pronunciation. And some of that comes from things like the letter B and the letter V, the letter C, Z, and S. A lot of them have overlaps, and if you don't have it written in the original form, you don't necessarily recreate it the same, even though it sounds the same. And then over time, it can skew. So you're going to find a lot of those little nuances when you come here. So even people who have a fair amount of, say, Guatemalan or Costa Rican Spanish, if they come here, they may find that it's very difficult to hear people speak it. My wife is quite fluent in Spanish. Here, as soon as we go to Costa Rica, she basically reverts to being at the same level that I am, which she's functional. She's somewhat conversational, but the amount of she's like, wait, what did you say? Goes way up, more like me than here. So that creates, in some ways, it makes Nicaragua a little bit harder. You can't be as prepared for the language, but it also means there's no need to feel you have to be, right? Nobody's coming here with a strong Nicaraguan Spanish background. You just can't, realistically. And so the world in which you're going to be getting into, everyone's just expecting you to struggle with the Spanish with what bit you have and to use other things most of the time, and it's fine. So the biggest thing is, don't worry about it, but to give yourself the best time, the most comfort, do put in some effort as much as you can muster between now and then, and I think you'll be in great shape. And just be prepared that you're going to be seeking out people who speak English, and you'll be practicing your Spanish. While here, if you're looking at a long-term stay, like this is just a temporary test to see if this is where you want to live, then chances are you're going to come back with a lot more Spanish. You'll learn more over time, and you'll just find that you're able to integrate and do things more and more and more. But you know, anyone in a shop, they're going to be excited to have you there, not just because you're potentially going to buy something, but because you pose just a change of pace to the day. There aren't that many foreigners who come and go to most things on the beach, of course, but in the city or something. I almost fell over. You represent a bit of a point of interest, and so most people are going to put in a bit of effort themselves because they want to be able to interact with you. They are very friendly, which most of the world is. That's not a unique thing, but don't feel that you need to feel that you have to have solid Spanish before coming. But you're not going to get a large number of English speakers pretty much anywhere. Some enclaves, yes, but in general, cities or beach, it's going to be in Spanish. All right, so what do we have going on this week? Just to catch you up a little bit, we had 2 days in a row, a couple days ago, of going out and doing filming of concerts, which is lots of fun, but really kept us busy. We recorded both Revolver performing this week and Ronnie and Caroling performed this week. And then I went out, so that was Thursday was Ronnie and Caroling, and then Friday was Revolver, and those were big, long, all-night things. Then Saturday, right, so we're going back a few days because today should be Sunday. If I have all my dates right in my head, it's very hard. Then we had, on Saturday night, we went out and saw Ronnie and Caroling again, met up with Alan and Anna, and met Alan's parents out at Food Rock. So we stayed for part of Ronnie and Caroling's performance, and then some of us ran out to the beach and went to Caracolitos, where they were having a costume Halloween night party there, which was a lot of fun. The big party. I was really surprised by how many people came out. They had a big dance and a bunch of DJs playing, and it was a lot of fun. They are a hostel on the beach. They're not beachside, they're across the street, but very close to the bend where all the things we talk about all the time are, Playa Roca and El Simple and all that kind of stuff. Right in that zone. So we had a nice night there, and then went out for a little bit at Pelican Surf, which is the dance club on the beach that tends to open very late. So we were out until quite late, and then that was that night. And then on Sunday night, which was the 30th, so it's hard to keep, that's coming up tonight, I believe. And then last night, on Sunday night, the kids and I started playing the Paynes Creek Killings, which is a video game that we got on Steam, and it is a full-on murder mystery where you're kind of an investigative reporter and you go to a village and it tells the story of a cold case. It's a little bit contrived, and definitely, it's very contrived, and a little bit weird because it's like an abandoned village. Like, why is it abandoned? Why is everything in the village related to a couple different dates and weird ways? Like, there's some things that are a little bit awkward, but overall it's really cool. It's kind of got that Nancy Drew type feel to it. By the way, it is like bright sun over here, and it is currently raining on me, and I've got dark sky over there. It's really interesting, but the birds are still out. The birds are like, yeah, whatever. So it's got kind of a Nancy Drew kind of vibe, but much more adult and serious and dark, but without the character interactions. And I do wish I had more story about the character you are. You're just an investigative reporter and basically ignored in the story. But the story itself is unfolding, and we're having a really good time playing that. We did that last night, and then we played it again tonight, or we're going to be playing it tomorrow night. Sorry, we got into it tonight and played for several hours, and both girls, Lisa and Luciana, and I are just really into the game and loving the way that it's telling the stories, the way that it took Nancy Drew but upped it to more of an adult level. It's our kind of thing, and we really do like the problem solving, and it doesn't have the weird puzzles that some of those games have. So if anyone is looking at games like that, we're really enjoying this at the moment, and it's a nice bit of something different. We're always looking for games like this, and so finding this was pretty nice. So that was our evening, and the last few days I've been working like crazy trying to get the show up to date. I've been training Marcella on doing editing so that she can help get the show moving as well. There's so much we have going on. I have so many channels that are active that it's actually quite a struggle to keep them going, because while I'm recording, I've got to upload. I've been doing so much process. I'm actually using all 3 GoPros and cycling them, with one doing uploading, one cooling down, and one recording, and I have to keep cycling them because of the amount of content that we're making. So that's what my days are like, and I'm working full-time in addition to that. So wow, like and subscribe. Thanks for joining me today. If you would like to help support the channel, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/ScottAllenMiller. That does so much to help make this channel possible and help us get all those cameras and things that we need to be able to do the show, and video games for us to play with the kids. And if you could share on social media, tell family and friends about the show. That means a lot. And as always, I will see all of you tomorrow.